We're with Dr. Withington. Today is April 28, 2004. I'm going to ask Dr. Withington some questions, and hopefully we'll record all this. Put this closer to you. Were you originally from Watertown?
Yes, I was born in Watertown March 31st, 1910. That's 94 years ago.
Did you go to Watertown High School?
No, I went to grade school, the old Academy Street School, until the 5th grade. Then my family moved to Adams Center, where our grandparents lived. And I went to finish up grade school and early high school in Adams Center through the 3rd year. And then my 4th year, I went to Adams High School because I needed chemistry in order to get into pre-medical college requirements. And I had a half year of postgraduate study at Adams High School, and subsequently worked as an orderly at the Albany City Hospital, which was my first introduction to medical care, never having been a patient in a hospital. Dr. Earl Babcock of Adams Center had taken care of me during my childhood, and I admired him very much.
So this was before you went to college?
And he graduated from the Albany Medical School, and that was what I had in mind from high school. And that's why I went to Albany City Hospital to work as an orderly to learn about hospital activities. Subsequently,
what year was that?
That was 1928. And Union College in Schenectady had a good preparatory, a good pre-med course, and it was that, and I had that in mind, and applied that and was accepted to Union. After 4 years at Union College, I still thought I wanted to go to Albany Medical School. Applied there and was accepted, but my uncle in New York offered me a board room if I could get into a medical school in New York. And then I applied to the College of Physicians and Surgeons at Columbia University and was accepted there. And graduated June 3rd, 1936. I was previously graduated from Union College in 1932. During my last year in medical school, I had a job as a clinical pathologist, working nights and weekends doing clinical pathology.
Is this at the school or
No,
at
the Methodist Episcopal Hospital in Brooklyn. And then, following graduation, I stayed on as a regular intern, two-year rotating internship at the Methodist Episcopal Hospital in Brooklyn. Following that, I had a residency in internal medicine at Kings County Hospital for 1 year.
Did most of the people who graduated with you do an internship then, or was that
All did, yeah.
everyone?
Yeah,
and the internship was pretty well established.
That was the accepted practice you really needed in the internship training. And when I was expected to go in with Doctors Walter Fox Smith and Dr. John Rice, but following my residency, the opening was not quite available, so I decided to start general practice in Copenhagen, New York. 1939. And
and you were by yourself.
And that was definitely frontier medicine. It was not only interesting and exciting, but also depressing to the extent that patients didn't come to see you until they had had whatever ailment they had, sometimes, many times, beyond medical relief, which was disappointing. And
did you take over someone's practice, or did you just hung out at Shingle?
Yeah. My first office in Copenhagen was in the back of a barber shop, and I had all the old equipment of Dr. who formerly practiced in Mansfield. This I acquired, and they do, along with what I could get started. I remember that there were many drugs that I never even heard of, which were in general use in country practice at that time, which meant that I had to keep my pharmacopoeia right handy to decide how these things should be dispensed.
For example, what kind of things were
tonics, and everybody had to have a tonic, and everybody had to have a blood builder, and everybody had to have something for their kidneys, or something for their gallbladder, and all of which was brand new medicine as far as I was concerned. They were not accustomed to laboratory studies of any kind, and many of their medical knowledge was very limited. Many notions were used, and any medication that they bought things at the drugstore, and they had no idea what they were for, how they were to be used.
Were these tonics and blood builders? Were they available at the drugstore, or
across the country? And
you didn't have to mix yourself and stuff.
In some cases, I did dispense some things that I had that I'd inherited from old Dr. I think his name was Sedgwick. Lowville, along, which was supplemented with drugs from Mr. William Fox of the Fox Drug Company in Carthage. In those days, detail men were not as common as they were a little bit later. I stayed in Copenhagen until the spring of 1940, when I was invited to join the practice of doctors Bach and Hawkins. Hawkins and Bach, Hawkins and Bach in Watertown. Dr. Hawkins was the leading pediatrician and was also the founder of the pediatrics department in both hospitals in Watertown at that time. And Dr. Bach was in charge of, was the head of internal medicine at that time.
Did you have privileges at the hospital? Were there things such as privileges at the hospital?
Yes.
When you were in Copenhagen?
Yes.
So you
I didn't have knitting privileges at that time. I don't think. Yes, I must have. No, I didn't, because it was a matter of distance. Taking care of when I had to refer patients both here and Lowville. And because I couldn't come in and keep track of them.
Right.
They're close because they had to be referred in, same with surgery. And obstetrics. I didn't do any obstetrics. I started to do obstetrics in the country, but I discovered that was too difficult, too hard to do.
How many children did you deliver?
I don't not a great many. Not a great many. Primarily because I had no coverage. There was no one to cover you. See, you had to be right there all the time, day and night, 7 days a week. And so it was so confining that I didn't want to do it. And, my postgraduate training was primarily in internal medicine and pediatrics, and my residency was in internal medicine. So,
were there enough obstetricians that most women were delivered by obstetricians, or was it mostly GPs that did the delivery?
Well, no, that was about that. The obstetrics as a specialty was just coming on, and Dr. Wendell George was one of the leading pediatricians, and at that time there were pediatricians, there were obstetricians at it. And Dr. Thornhill did a lot of them when I was a little tyke, and Dr. Thornhill did, and I think I don't remember, but Dr. Wendell George was leading pediatrician, leading obstetrician then, and devoted full practice to obstetrics. I stayed in practice with Dr. Bach, Dr. Hoffman, Dr. Bach, and we did mainly both office calls and house calls, and that was in the days when there was competition for the house calls. You had to beat Benny Maxson, Benny and Chris Ronson, and if you got a call, you got yourself right out to it in a hurry. And there was that kind of practice that it wasn't it was, and if you didn't do your job according to what the family thought, you were out the door and somebody else was in.
Were did you see more patients at the house than in the office, or?
Oh no, I did. I averaged, I'm sure, 20, 25 house calls a day. And that was day and night, by the way, 24 hours. And then in the office, I would make house calls all morning long, and as soon as I got through, I'd go in the office and then stay until we got things done. And we had, with three of us working, we had saw a lot of people. And we had a big Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Fred Smith had the choice of the whole Woolworth building when they built the new Woolworth building. And they picked the third floor in the Woolworth building. And there was some question as to whether, who was the lawyer? There was one lawyer that was, he thought he was the first one, but Dr. Hawkins, I'm sure, told me that they had the choice of the building. We stayed there for over 50 years.
Now, when you started practicing this before antibiotics, how did you deal with things like infections without antibiotics? Was that?
Oh, well, that's interesting because the first of the specific drugs was,
I should say before penicillin.
That's the one that was before that.
Sulfur.
Yeah. The sulfur drugs were the first. Outside of things like quinine and the old drugs, but it was when the sulfur was the first of the drugs, and then we got penicillin. And one of the differences in those early drugs, sometimes you had to give them intravenously, and it was always there was hair-raising experience because the purity of the drugs was not what it eventually became, and you got drug reactions. They were sometimes pretty violent, and allergies. But we went through that whole antibiotic stage in medicine. And then I went in the service in 1942. Had an active time in the service. Eventually.
Where were you stationed?
Well, I went in Rhode Island, and then was on, after my indoctrination, on recruiting duty in Vermont, there in Vermont, recruiting with the Marines, 6 months, and then that folded up to, that was rough going. And then that folded up, and I went to Pensacola to aviation medicine. And then I was on recruiting duty with Naval Aviation Corps. Chicago, and then I shipped out, San Francisco and out, and mainly in the Southwest Pacific, Australia, Philippines. I was on a seaplane tender during I was at a seaplane base in Brisbane, Australia for 6 months. And then up through the islands and that conquest up to the Philippines. Then I was on a seaplane tender in 88.
Were you in a medical position or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As a medical officer. Then I was gotten a designation to begin with, but ultimately was a flight surgeon and was a naval aviation cadet. Aviation. And, so that we had a squadron of seaplanes stationed aboard the USS Tangier and operated independently up through the islands. So we acted as a tender not only for our squadron but for a lot of the landing craft would come aboard come alongside for supplies, things like that. So that, and then I came back to Alameda, and then I would come back to Hawaii, and then on our way back, and then Alameda, and I was went back to Rhode Island, and that's where I came out of the service. So,
and when was that? You came out 45?
46, I think it was. 42 to 46. That was about right. And I had an opportunity to stay in the service, and then I also had a chance to go with TWA as a flight surgeon. I kept my contact with Dr. Hawkins Bach, and I wanted to come home. And I covered both Dr. Hawkins and Bach, and from there off, one in pediatrics and the other in internal medicine. So it made an interesting practice. And then Dr. Hawkins retired, and then Dr. Bach and I were together for 15 years, just the two of us, and that was a nice arrangement. It worked out very nicely. And then his wife died, and he remarried, and he wanted more time off, wanted to travel, so he retired, and then Dr. Ebels came with me for 3 or 4 years, and he wanted to do he didn't like the pediatrics. He didn't want to do the pediatrics, but covering me. I had all these pediatric problems, they're getting patients, and so he left, and then Dr. Basinger came with me, and he stayed for 3 or 4 years, and then he wanted to just do industrial medicine. He didn't want to work as hard. He didn't care about working as hard, so he wanted to do just industrial medicine. So he left, and that was the end of it. And I stayed on myself. Retired in 1985 or 6, I think it was 1986 when we closed the office. That's about it. This has all been done, and Mr. Champagne did this.
I remember reading.
And so I suppose it needs to be done again. And the interesting things about medicine are several. Two is the competition between Mercy and the House of Good Samaritan. That was the big thing. And it was a ridiculous thing. And Dr. John Kennedy tried the hardest, I think, of anybody to get them to join forces and have one hospital out, actually way out somewhere, out that way somewhere. But he never could get them the competition. And the ridiculous part of it was they'd get the House of Good Samaritan get $1 million piece of equipment, and then they had to have one too. And put two of the same thing in the same area. Yes.
What do you think caused the competition? What do you think caused the competition? Why couldn't both hospitals work together for a common
They could have, but they didn't because they didn't because there was always, well, number one was I think one of the things that kept them apart was the fact that abortions were being done. And that was one of that's why it never could. And we tried to work it out so they'd each have their own operating rooms and all that sort of thing. And but one big unit, and then with two separate operating rooms, and here they do this and here they do that. You see, the staffs were the same, and lugging all of them equipment. Dr. Young, Weber Young, carried all that GU equipment and had back and forth here, and then he didn't have enough, so he have enough of it so he could have a set here and a set there. Now he lugged stuff back and forth, and there were things there were many things that, but there was a religious thing. The Catholics and the Protestants. You didn't want to get yourself caught in Holy Family Church or St. Patrick's, and they were the predominating thought at that time. Now there are a lot of either they were strong Protestants. They weren't necessarily Presbyterians or Baptists or Methodists. They just didn't like Catholics, and the Catholics didn't like the Protestants. And it was a lot of things were on that basis, business wise, and in the country in those days. And so ultimately one was going to have to give in. There's no question about it. But the sisters made some bad. Somebody come along with a gadget and say, you got to have one of these things. Well, since we think you need it, well, we better get it. So they got themselves in, and they tried to. One of the things that happened that I think that slowed them under is that they tried to have a trauma center. And a trauma center means you've got have to have that full staff of cover all specialties, you see. And there just weren't that many doctors do that. And they would, and being a trauma center, then you fell heir to all these kids with the motorcycles that get smashed up, and no money, no insurance, no nothing. You see, they got stuck with a lot of bad medical bills, and that was one reason that they went down. There's no question about that. From an outsider's standpoint, and you could see it coming, and it kept getting farther and farther apart. And they kept getting deeper, and then when it got into all this new ultra equipment, and they had House Good Samaritan had a computer.
CAT scan.
Yeah, CAT scan, and then Mercy didn't have it. They had this mobile CAT scan. Well, and then they had to get. I don't know whether. Well, another thing that was an interesting thing was that early we had a lot of infectious diseases that we don't see much of now. And as a matter of fact, we had at least two, Vitamin Hospital, Vitamin, and then there was another one out in Calcium that were.
Was Vitamin the
When I'm
now the county? Was Vitamin with now the county long-term care facility out by the college?
No.
No.
Vitamin was a small place out on Bradley Street.
On Bradley Street.
Yeah, and that's where all the measles and chickenpox and that sort of thing, those infectious diseases were used, and scarlet fever, things that were common.
Who ran those hospitals?
Well, it was St. Germain ran the one out on Bradley Street, but Dr. Hawkins was the one that was in charge of it. We had privileges out there, and it was a small operation, but it was thing. Then they had another one out at Kelton. That big house, the one right at the end of the long walk, in Kelton. You've been on that.
Yeah.
On that walk, haven't you?
On the Calcium end of the walk?
Yeah. There's a great big, stucco, I think, house. Right out there, and that was a contagious hospital for a while.
Were the patients in individual rooms, or were they on wards?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, they used the rooms. Of course, most of them were cribs.
Yeah.
Because there were the kids with measles.
Children. Yeah.
Measles, and you'd have the measles in one room, and the chickenpox in some other room, and that type of thing. So it's kind of that. But it was more a question of isolation. In those days, they'd stick a sign up on your house, smallpox or chickenpox, and quarantine you in. You couldn't get out. You had to have people bring the groceries in, stuff like that. That was a big change. And of course, the ambulance service, I can remember back when they had you've seen the pictures of the old ambulances there.
With horses.
And, it wasn't horses. It wasn't horses. There was the one that I remember in the flu epidemic of 1980. Just about that. 1917, 18. The flu epidemic, and they had this ambulance that just one bed in the thing, or one cot, and the thing in the back, you stand in the back and hang on, but they went through all the things, and then the other change was when the House of Good Samaritan was as an isolated building, and then they had the nurses' home on the right-hand side,
right.
And then the steam room that ultimately became the maternity section in the middle back there. And then they kept adding on, and I can remember the first time I was ever in the House of Good Samaritan. They had these big long wards with the cots all along the sides there, and one for the men, one for the. I guess the women are maybe upstairs. I don't know where they were, but and that operating room was about as big as this, and with a little amphitheater there. So it's a room for a dozen doctors to stand around and see the wheels of progress. And that and surgery was really an old Dr. Calkins. Dr. Calkins and Dr. Primer. Calkins and Primer are the first surgeons that I remember, but they ruled the surgery. You didn't get into surgery, and you didn't do any surgery that they didn't approve of. You had to. It was a tight team that they had at the head of that. And you didn't.
There was only one operating room suite?
One right there.
No.
And
what was surgery? Now, there wouldn't have been an anesthetist, or who in surgery, was it just the surgeon and a nurse?
No, they'd have a surgical team, but they'd have an anesthetist, but it was old drop ether. So somebody sat there with a pouring on ether and you passed out. And but they had that was the beginning of, that's the early part of surgery as I and
but the anesthetist was just another physician. It wasn't someone that
could have been a nurse.
Or
it was a nurse. I think most of the Dr. Murray Gardner, M.M. Gardner, the old Dr. Gardner. Most of them had their own nurse and the same with you. But people like in the ear, nose, and throat, Dr. McCaskill and Dr. Atkinson, they're going to do a tonsillectomy. They would invite the general practitioner to come in and give the anesthesia. And I used to do that for somebody. And then the other thing was that they very often, Dr. Cooper is here, he in order to get the goodwill of the rural physicians, would have you come in and scrub with an acute appendix or a gallbladder. Regardless of how much training you had, I had a good bit of surgical training in my internship, but there are those who didn't have very much. And they just let them come in, hold a retractor or something. That was that was done primarily to get the favor of the doctors in Adams and Carthage, Teresa. But there was a camaraderie among the doctors then that you don't see now. There wasn't a competition in the field really. We had an awful lot of fun together. Particularly the one group, we all had. A lot of us had either boats or cottages, and the opening of bass season was a big day. You wouldn't do anything. You had everything free for that day. And we used to have county medical ticks. And they were always, somebody got hurt on those. Drinking too much or something.
What do you remember about the County Medical Society?
Oh,
was that a closer?
Oh, that was
a closer group than it is now.
Oh, yes, it was a functioning group. We even had our own. At one time, we had our own medical journal. Right. You may have seen it.
I have, yeah. We have copies of it.
Yeah, and I contributed to some of those. I remember. And we had our county medical meetings were, particularly hospitals, staff meetings were interesting. You always had one or two interesting cases, and there's all kinds of interesting cases going through the hospital all the time, and everybody had something, and that was fun because you were responsible. You had to do all the research on it, and you were supposed to be able to answer any questions on whatever it was you were going to present. And it was good, and you looked forward to it. And we, in the scientific part of the county medical thing, we had the speakers come in from Syracuse or Albany or Utica or someplace, and who were specialists in their field. And they would, and you wouldn't miss those meetings. You wouldn't miss those meetings because you looked forward to them. And I gradually dropped out. But we had the medical and the county. That was an interesting thing too. Is that they had in order to join the medical county, the county medical society, you had to be on the staff of the hospital. And so we could hold somebody up from county medical things. Of course, once you held them up, then you didn't get your workman's compensation without being a. And I remember one time when George Sturgeon first came, he'd been trained to be anesthetic, and George wanted to get into county medicine, and I was president. And he came in June, but our next meeting wasn't until September, so we couldn't vote on him until September. Well, George went upside down the other. He was going to take me to task, and we finally got a special meeting, and got him. We had a special meeting and voted him in so that he could get properly the workman's compensation and all that, so he gets registered and so forth. And that was a ridiculous thing because that's the way the thing was on the book, and it had no right to be there. There's no question about that, but that's the way things were. You didn't go. Actually, that went forward from the preceptor days. When the doctor didn't go to medical school necessarily, he just worked around with Dr. so and so a number of years until they thought he was ready to take an exam, and then he took the exam. He passed the exam, but then he was allowed to, if he met certain qualifications, then he was taken on. So that was an interesting part of medicine too. And that all got straightened around. But the medical meeting, to get back to those, were interesting, and everybody was interested, and you wouldn't miss them. And but now, then it got more and more.
Why do you think it isn't? It's important now.
Money. Yeah. Money is the answer. That they got so wrapped up in every meeting, every county meeting, wound up with how we're going to get more money from our welfare cases, and they were scrapping to the welfare department, and in some cases it was justified, and others it wasn't. I'm sure. I remember very distinctly having a patient in the office with a broken ankle. I'm sure it was. And I had to call a welfare patient. I had to call a welfare office. And, well, why do you think this is necessary? And I had to justify this whole business. And I was so mad. Here's some high school student sitting over there at the phone deciding whether or not I could, giving me permission to authorize an X-ray of this patient's ankle. So that was a sad day in medicine too. That is, And now, I couldn't practice medicine now with somebody leaning over my shoulder, and there is the respect of the nursing staff that there was in those days. When Dr. Hawkins came on the floor, nurses paid attention, and when he made rounds, that was they went right along with him. And but now when you start thinking every order is reviewed, and every judgment is reviewed. And then this thing that the record room was always the headache for the staff. If you're in charge of the record room, you had your work cut out for you, and because you had to go through and sign all these cards, initials, that you checked them over. They were adequate. So I don't know whether you've ever seen anything at Betty's, Chris Rodson. Patient came in the office, she was sick, put her in the hospital. Stuff like that. It's absolutely worthless. And I finally got where I said, no more. I'm not going to sign any more of those cards. When you stopped, you had to put your initials on inadequate histories and physicals. And they got away with it. Because there was the other answer to that was money again. Betty and Chris were the ones that were filling the beds. They put everybody in the hospital. You wouldn't try to take care of anybody at home. You need to be in the hospital, because they could get them in there and get them in there and just walk by the door, and that would be a hospital call. Never even stop and check them. But some of the things that then the medical legal business got going, and some of there was one instance where an outfit teacher had a gal checking charts, and there wasn't a chart that went through the hospital. You couldn't find something wrong with it somewhere, and somebody fell out of bed and it went funny. There was that stopped there, and then they'd get the record pretty soon. The ball was rolling, so it got to the point where you didn't. You had to be so careful on anything that you put down on paper. And that the nurses were checking your records, and then they would see it one way and you'd see it another. Maybe you were both right, I know. But there'd be stuff like that. But it got you got a lot of doctors, a lot of nurses in trouble as they went along. So when you say, how is it different, it is different. I'd rather be up in Barnes Corners seeing somebody in my office doing it my way than to be subjected to all. And you see, they got to the point where the other thing that happened was that you were practicing preventive medicine. You were practicing everybody that goes through the emergency room has, it may not be $1,000, but it's in the hundreds of dollars of laboratory work to go through the door. And you get into that, and there are a lot of x-rays that are taken, that are x-rays, cardiograms, all of the workup study that, and you have to have that in order to defend a record. We didn't have to do that. We could order what we thought we indicated, and we pretty much better it better be indicated because the patients are going to hold you responsible for the cost. And but now with the insurance companies, charges are just, that's one of the distressing things. That my wife goes to the doctor to get a PT time. Now the gal says it takes her less than the whole from the time. She takes her blood pressure and she checks it off. And then $65. You know, when I started, I got 50 cents on an office call, and up to $1, and $1 for a house call in Copenhagen. That's the way we started out. And but now I'd have somebody make a call if I later. Before I retired, I couldn't make a call for one reason or another. Somebody else saw the patient. They got a charge of $40 for a house call, $40, $50, $60 for a house call. Well, we never think $5 or $10 for a house call, and that's really ridiculous. But they wonder why medicine is different, and it is. And surgery charges for Dr. M.S. Gardner used to take out an appendix for $50, I think, or something. He said $5 for all that. You don't get your appendix taken out for that now.
No, nobody.
And you see the charges that are on that they're listed for every little procedure. Seems exorbitant, and it is. But that's what it is, and that's where we are now, and that's one of the reasons that medicine costs so much.
Definitely so.
Yeah. And everybody has to have insurance. And of course the drug is just beginning to get at this drug business here as to why drugs are so expensive. And I think they're going to get somewhere. It looks like they are. That with the Canadian thing. Springfield or Holyoke, Springfield.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to win that thing. I think people are pretty much behind him. So I think maybe they're going to get somewhere, but the malpractice is so expensive. That's one of the big things. Just costs so much to do business. And I guess
Can I ask one last question?
Sure, yes. Any question?
I don't want to.
Elizabeth is sick. And to be in the hospital for a long period of time. So that, but I don't know just what you mean by what they were.
How about other departments in the hospital? Like where radiology, laboratories, what were those places like?
All of those departments have gone ahead tremendously, as you know. So that when speaking of radiology, that was not really a complicated affair when back in the early days. Dr. Hawkins, or Dr. Sickles and Dr. Pauling were together, and they had their own office, and if you wanted an X-ray of a wrist, you could send them over there and they could take it, and they'd call you and say, well, it shows this, and send you a report. And that was fairly simple equipment. Well, then as the radiology equipment increased, their knowledge increased, and that's another point that I think we should make, and that is that in the early days, the doctors went to medical conventions. Every doctor went, and not all to the same one, but some would go to state conventions, some would go to national conventions, and some would go to regional or more specific things, surgical, medical, pediatrics, and so forth. So that's the way, that along with your journals is the way you kept up. And we all subscribed, and every doctor's office had subscribed to the pertinent journals and they read them. But now it's so specialized that, and there's so many, and they also are expensive to go to. But I used to go there. I went to the postgraduate medical assembly every year, and that's always in either Chicago or San Francisco or one of the big New Orleans or someplace. And that was always a four-day session, and it covered all the fields of the whole field of internal medicine, both surgical and including the specialties. And they were designed for certain purposes, and that's the way you kept up. And we all did it. And you'd meet all the, I remember after DeBasey was here, he's over at the North,
the oncologist, Dr. Basie.
No, am I saying his name right? From Texas.
Oh, okay, no,
yeah. Dr. It's kind of gone for him. But anyway, he was an international cardiologist that kind of led the field in cardiac surgery. And he spoke over at Northside Improvement League.
Oh, I know who you're saying.
DeBakey.
Yeah.
DeBakey, yeah.
Right.
Dr. Michael DeBakey. And I had sent a patient to him just that year. It was for cardiac surgery, and I forgot what it is, but we did things like that.
Right.
And if they were speaking in Syracuse or Utica, 2 or 3 of you would get together and say, let's go down there, so-and-so. And you'd get in the car, and one would drive, and the rest would ride along. And that you don't see as much of now. Maybe they go, I don't know what they're doing. You don't hear about it.
Yeah.
And then they'd come back, and then and those early, we'd come back and report to the medical staff on what we had picked up. And that was interesting too. Dr. Bach went to Vienna to learn about electrocardiography. Way back in the very beginning of so he was the first cardiologist in town. The surgeons would spend some time with learning new techniques and doing new procedures. So that's where we did it then. To get back to the department and see that there was a laboratory. A laboratory meant a urinalysis, a blood count, a urinalysis, and you didn't. Well, blood chemistry wasn't as extensive as it is now, and things like gastric analysis, stuff like that. That was a major procedure. You can remember. And pediatrics has gone ahead tremendously. And then I don't know anything about out of that field, and but then certainly geriatrics has gone ahead, and so that
there were no nursing. Were there nursing homes? When did the nursing homes first start?
Well, there's a lot more. There were a lot more. There again, that's got to be. There are a lot more home care things. People would take you. It's a house like this. We have 4 bedrooms. We've got an extra bedroom or 2 where we'll take in a couple of old people and look after them. And that's where it got taken care of. And then the worst part of that. But now you've got if you have more than 3 patients or 4 patients, something like that, then you've got to meet all the specifications of a nursing home. Inspections and food, fire, everything. So that, I don't remember that. That was a gradual change. And, I think some of it is they're trying to get back, but some of it they're trying to get some of these old people back into homes that you don't need the formal nursing care because the cost is right up there. It's prohibitive. Many instances, these old people have just enough to get by, but there's no money for any big nursing home care. Then if you have, I don't know what the numbers are, but you have to have a registered nurse. If you're dispensing medication, you have a registered nurse, and then you've got to have 24-hour duty. And it means you got to have nurses on 24 hours. One of the talking about nursing homes to get into American East, you have to go buy a board over there to get over there and pass this. All these things have to be, and then they have to have home visits and everything before they'll get you on their list over there. We came close to getting onto that one time. My wife. She had no part of it. We got out of there before we got up to the big board. But other departments, first the accounting department, the bookkeeping department, and this paperwork is just patient chart is so much more complicated now than it used to be. It used to be a little thing like this. You could go through and But now it's a big loose leaf notebook. It's got all kinds of things in there. And that's a big change in the hospital. And the other thing, you've been around long enough to know that the administration can vary. When Mr. Shannon was here, we had the same problem that you have right now. But he could take a problem and rub his chin a little bit and say, well, I think this is what we ought to do, and do it. But you look at it's the same problem. And it's got to go through all these boards and all these things. Oh, my goodness. They got approval for this. And nothing is simple, as you know. Well, have we pretty much covered the waterfront as far as you're concerned? You got pages?
I got about 25 pages of stuff.
Yeah. Well, however, I don't care what to do with this.
I'll show it to you before I do anything with it.
I think if you could review what that article that Champagne did, there's an overlapping of material here, but he has some of it.
Well,
I think you can get that from the Times if you don't have it.
Right. Yeah. We have the Times online, so we can get it on the internet.
Oh.
We have all the articles in the Times you can get on the computer now.
Of
so
course.
I can find it that way.
Of course you can.
But I mean, this is just for the library newsletter, and it's a different audience, I think.
But as I say, I don't want to be blowing my own horn here.
Well,
I've had my day in medicine. It was a very enjoyable life. We had our family, and we educated our children, and they've all had what they wanted in the way of education. We lived well, comfortably, and not pretentiously, I don't think. And here we are. My wife is 92, and I'm 94. She's 93. And so that we've had a full life, and I think we enjoyed medicine when it was fun to do. We worked hard, hours were long, and but we felt responsible for our patients. Now I can't go anywhere but what somebody comes up and says, remember when you fixed that little, you see right there? Sure, I remember. It was in a good stage in medicine. Everybody was after it. Height. If I had it all to do over again, I think I'd do it pretty much the same. Eliminate some of it. I enjoyed my tour of duty in the service. I got through that without getting nicked. All I got out of that was a broken leg once. That was my own fault. We were playing touch football. I don't think I was gained much. A good hospital, a good medical education. I was in the Albany City Hospital as an orderly. I attended something like 75 autopsies. Well, that's all before I went to college.
Really?
And you can imagine how bug-eyed I was seeing all of the stuff that would go through an autopsy room. And then I worked in the medical school in the path lab at Albany Medical School, so I knew all the doctors and faculty at Albany Medical College, so I pretty well had my ducks in line there. They kind of looked forward to having me come along, but then I turned it down because of getting board in rooms. It meant a lot going to New York. So that's where
you do have to pay for college.
Yeah, me too. Well, back then, that was nothing, man. My senior year in undergraduate school, I made money in college. I had jobs enough. I did everything. I washed dishes in the 30 hours for 30 guys, and got my board that way, board and room. And I drove for an old lady on afternoons when she wanted to go for a ride, and I did all kinds of things. And I had a good time when I was in college. When I got to medical school, they said, well, these grades aren't quite as good as we'd like to have them. And I said, but I had a good time. I did. I enjoyed myself. I was in sports and activities, security. I was so contented at college that weekend I didn't even leave the college campus. There was enough going on on the campus so that I just sit right there and enjoyed what was going on. So if I had it all to do over it, I don't know that I'd do it. Very fortunate, wealthy family.
What do you and your son talk about? What do you and your son talk about when we get together about medicine?
Well, I don't have any friends. No,
yeah.
I mean we've outlived. Well, we go over the hospital problems. He can't wait to get out.
Really?
No, he can't wait to retire because he's had his fingers wrapped, particularly with the state. When they get these compensation things and some of the requirements of the orthopedic field, all you got to do is listen to the lawyers in Syracuse on television, and if you got a nick or something, come and see me. I'll get you some money. And it's money for back of it. It is by and large. It is the practice. The patient appreciates. I enjoy it. I lived long enough to enjoy the fruits of our efforts that patient that come out and say, remember when we did this, because it was very good. But they appreciate it at the time, and then as they've gotten older, and the way medicine's gone, they compare what they used to get with what they get now. Well, just things with the emergency room. If anybody sat around the emergency room half an hour, it was a long time. Why is this patient moving? Well, we could get a blood count, we could urinalysis, we could get an X-ray, all done like that. And when we ran the The general practitioner ran the emergency room in those days. That was it was none of us. We didn't get paid. We just assumed the duty. The patients got paid, got charged by the hospital for the emergency room, but we didn't get paid unless the patient came back as a patient for follow-up care or for subsequent care. And that was another thing. One of Benny's or Chris's patients come in. Well, what are you doing in here? Why'd you come see me? I think those are the big changes that now I go in, not so much in the hospital as over in Keith. I just want to go over there. And they say, where is it in all the time? The girl that says, the older girl, of course, they stay on longer than they do. And I don't know many of the nurses that are on over in the hospital. They've come and gone and so forth. So, but it's been a good life. I no regrets. A lot of good memories. Had a lot of fun. What did I say? The doctors as a group were a much friendlier group. You go in over there now and you say good morning or good afternoon or something, and who are you?
Yeah. Do you think maybe that's part of the reason that, I mean, now it seems like people come to Withington, they practice here for 5 years, and they go someplace else, whereas the period you're talking about, there was more of a commitment to Withington. You know, it just seems to me like in the hospital, you know, every day I'm getting new message, so-and-so is just giving many privileges. And, you know, and then they get a better offer somewhere else in their mind.
Yeah. They, well, it's a 9 to 5 type of thing, too. Usually kids come in from Syracuse, the whistle blows, and they're gone. And, but we were here, and they knew where we lived, and they drive up their door and say, I need help. And, but there is that. At least we don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't. It was a great day. Great day in medicine. We enjoyed each other. And actually, we had a group of doctors. We were around each other's houses. And the gals would plan these things. They'd say, well, we're going to have a dinner party. Come on over. We're going to all go over here for dinner or something. Or we're all going to, like a New Year's Eve. We'd all go to Blackwood Valley Club. There was a like their Jesse affair, so forth. Well, we all meet at somebody's house. For years, we used to have a beginning of the Christmas season. We'd have a cocktail party here with all of our medical friends, and that would be the start of the Christmas season. And we'd be here for this and that. And you don't see that.
Yeah.
The people leave hospital and they go their separate ways, pretty much. But I think by and large, one time, Dr. John Kennedy had it pretty well lined up to get two hospitals together. He quickly knew we were going to go, but he never forget it. Never will. And the Hospital Samaritan rode herd on Mercy every chance they got, and Mercy fought back as hard as they could, and but they didn't have the backing money that they needed. But there again.
Well, I was around here when that was. I came here in '74, so I know exactly what you were talking about the relationship between the two hospitals. Didn't make much sense to me.
No, it didn't. Anybody, but they, it was, that's the way it was. We, lived through it. I remember when I was an intern, a resident in New York, he used to tell my fellow interns and residents about the setup here, and it seemed ideal because the setup that we had here, they were in our town. This is where we do it. They were in Brooklyn. They were all dogs, and everybody else was still. I came to stay in Brooklyn. I was no way out of here. Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, again.
And we thank you so much for your time.
Well,
it was really nice
fun.
of you to
make
some time for me. I think it's an important. It's something that I think where we get too focused on what it's like today, and you forget about what it was like.
Yeah. We all Dick and I enjoyed your article on Dr. Walter Atkinson. He was a very dear friend of mine, and I taught his wife and family to swim.
Really?
See, we used to have my wife and I used to have charge of the park pool when we were in college, and originally we knew Dr. John Atkinson, but the present Dr. Atkinson, who's a gastroenterologist,
right?
Her mother was one of my teachers.
Okay.
And so that, but it was a great day. That type of thing we enjoyed. Reading about him. He was a real authority.
International reputation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was Canadian. He had a brother, Dr. Headley Atkinson. He was a character. He was near nose and throat. He had hands like a football player, He'd hit in your mouth. He had that was a little ear, nose, and throat hospital.
Right.
Down on the corner of Sterling and
Neville Parsons.
Yeah. I remember going in there with a peritontal abscess when I was first started. He was back in there. He didn't need anesthesia or anything else.